So what is counseling? Counseling, by definition, is the process used to review demonstrated potential and performance. But in much simpler terms, counseling is a dialogue between two interested parties, one with the intent on getting better, one with the intent on helping the other individual get better, and assessing and appraising over time performance, leading towards goals and objectives for the future of where somebody wants to go, that they want to go, not that you want them to go. Counseling is highly individualized. It doesn't necessarily work the same way for two different people, and what worked on you in the past doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the way for other people in the future. We're not going to talk about clinical counseling throughout this, but we're going to talk about certain techniques and fundamentals of how counseling gets after improving people and then improving the organization as a whole. Counseling is probably the most important step within the leadership development and the developmental process. And there's 4 fundamentals of development. One is setting the conditions, and we're going to talk about how setting the conditions within the organization and then for each individual counseling session is so important. The second fundamental of development is providing feedback, and that's that discussion and dialogue that counseling is the mechanism by which we provide it. Third fundamental is enhancing learning, and hopefully the tasks and the discussion that comes out of the counseling session enhance collective learning, not just for the individual being counseled, but for the counselor as well. Because what I've found over time is during the counseling process, you learn just as much from the person that you're supposed to be giving advice and counsel to as you give to them. And then the last one is creating opportunities. And simply put, that's identifying goals and objectives into the future and then developing a collaborative plan and pathway ahead in order to achieve those things. So let's first talk about setting conditions. Part of the setting of conditions is the organizational culture. How important do you make learning within the organization? And it's not just saying it in a vision statement or a mission statement. It's actually how much time do you invest in the developmental process within the organization? Somebody can say, I'm all in on leadership development and I really want people to get better. But is that what they're dedicating their time to? Prioritization is all about what do you spend the greatest amount of capital, whether that be time, money, energy, whatever, in doing. And when we say leadership development is my number one priority, and you take a look at the calendar and you take a look at whatever the schedule is that your particular business or organization uses, and you don't see a lot of opportunities, kind of ask yourself, is it the most important thing that we do around here? So one of the biggest momentum builders within the counseling process is making sure that you dedicate the time that you say you're going to dedicate to the whole developmental process. Setting conditions also means understanding as you're coming into counseling or developmental sessions that they're well planned, they're well resourced, they're well thought out, and they have a distinct end state or goal in mind. It's not just to do things to do them and hope that by some magic and miracle learning takes place. You got to understand where it is you want to go. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how you get there. There's no clear objective or end state in mind, then the path doesn't really matter. Now we're just doing stuff to do stuff. So setting conditions is making sure everybody in the organization understands the prioritization of development and understands the emphasis that you personally are going to put on it as a leader that makes everyone understand, hey, this individual is really fully invested in us getting better as people and then as an organization as a whole. In order to do that, you got to create that learning environment. And learning environments typically flourish in environments of trust, mutual respect, and a fearless execution in that people understand that they're going to make mistakes and that there's honest mistakes. That what I've explained in the organizations I've led before is you've got tactics and techniques on one side, you got morals, ethics, and values on the other side, and kind of see those as your curbs or your rumble strips on either side of the highway. I don't care how you operate between those rumble strips, so long as you don't break the tenets and fundamentals of our techniques and procedures that are established, and you don't stray outside the boundary of laws, of morals, and our professional ethic within the organization. There are mistakes going to be made. Nobody's perfect. I make a ton of them. The trick is try not to make the same mistake over and over and over again. It may take a repetition or two to realize what it is that went wrong. We do this at the National Training Center and the Joint Readiness Training Center all the time. We do this at Gunnery. We do this in all of these different training endeavors that we have. And one of the last things that we do in every training evolution is we reassess by doing an after-action review in order to understand what it is that went right so we can continue those behaviors, and what it is that didn't go the way we had planned so that we can set up a program to learn from those issues and learn from those mistakes and move forward to collective improvement into the future. The counseling session is a lot like the AAR process, the after-action review process, but it's individualized, and it's you on somebody else talking about what their goals and objectives are into the future, what they have done in the past, and whether that performance is going to continue to progress them towards where it is they want to go into the future. The second fundamental of development is providing feedback, and that counseling session that we're going to talk about over the next several videos in terms of the actual session itself, the preparation phase, the execution phase, and the follow-through after that are really that providing feedback mechanism. We talked about after-action reviews as a collective organizational effort to learn from training, to learn from deployments, to learn from gunnery, to learn from all of those different myriad of things that we do on a day-to-day basis in order to collectively improve. Well, the counseling session, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually, is that very tailored dialogue between you and someone else that has their concerted interests in mind to propel them towards betterment, that relentless pursuit of better that I talk about a lot. If I'm better tomorrow than I am today and better the day after tomorrow than I am tomorrow, then I'm moving in the right direction. And we as leaders need to be the shepherds of that process and the encouragement in order to get people to continue to do great things, whether or not they recognize that they're doing them at the time. And part of our job as the person that kind of escorts someone along their own personal professional journey is to give them encouragement, to give them feedback, to give them advice based off of things that you see that they may not be aware of, or things that you've experienced in the past, to give them encouragement and some tangible active device that they can use in their own progression towards getting better. And that's what providing feedback is all about. And the counseling session is the mechanism, the primary mechanism for doing that. The third fundamental of development is enhancing learning. And that's a leader's job, is to create the conditions within the organization that allows people to understand that making a mistake in this place, in this organization, is not going to be detrimental to my personal reputation, my personal growth, my advancement towards the future, that there are people around me that are going to sincerely help me, who have my best interest in mind, in the organization's best interest in mind, to helping me learn from that experience and that mistake so that I don't replicate it into the future and that I can get better. Again, that relentless pursuit for better every single day. How do I increase my capability? The counseling process and the developmental process is another mechanism to enhance the learning environment so that we can have an honest dialogue about what went right and what didn't go so well, and that we can improve off of those things that didn't go so well and enhance and improve on those things that went right as well. So the enhancing the learning environment as a fundamental of developmental processes is an important aspect that a leader needs to inculcate within the organization. Because if people believe that they're going to get blasted every time they make a mistake, they're going to be less prone to trying. They're going to be less prone to acting on whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing. They're going to be tentative. They're not going to have initiative. They're not going to execute in line with your intent, whether or not you're hanging over their shoulder or not. And that's not the organization we want to be in. The myriad of different challenges that we encounter, particularly within our profession, where you're out of contact, you understand where the organization is supposed to go, but we don't necessarily have the opportunity or the luxury of waiting on an answer or waiting to be told what to do next, for a lot of different reasons. That's not necessarily, people that are afraid to act. People that are afraid to act typically are afraid because they're afraid of making a mistake, because they're afraid of the consequence of that mistake. Understanding that there are consequences for certain things, those red line items that people cross, need to be dealt with. But the vast majority, particularly in a training environment, of mistakes that are made are correctable, are learnable, and can be used as fantastic teaching tools to get somebody to understand what went wrong, what went right, and how to improve into the future. A leader's job is to identify those and put it into a context that people understand so that they can not make those mistakes again. And that counseling process, whether it's formal or informal, whether it's a pull off to the side or a sit down with notebooks in an office or some other secluded area, that process to improve the behavior and performance of somebody moving into the future is absolutely essential. Otherwise, we're just spinning around wondering how it is we went, how it is we did, and whether anybody is ever going to talk to us about it. And if not, then we just assume that what we've been doing is fine, and we're going to continue that. Well, if nobody's calling us out on the things that we didn't do so well or that strayed away from what the intent was, we're going to ignorantly move into the future doing what it is we've always done. My most unfavorite word, why do we do it that way? Because that's the way it's always been done around here. Well, sometimes things don't need to be done that way anymore. And sometimes we need to question the reasons behind what it is we're doing and moving forward from that so we can progress and innovate and improve over time. The last fundamental of the developmental process is creating opportunities. And that's really where the game plan, the byproduct of the counseling process, moving forward, how do we set out to accomplish the objectives and goals that we set out? Where do you want to be in the future? Where are you right now? And how do we develop a plan moving forward to get you from here to where you want to be? That creating opportunities, almost waypoints along that path towards the future better self, is a leader's responsibility to engage in that dialogue and brainstorm with somebody. Ask questions that allows them to arrive at how they're going to map out that route to better, how they're going to map out that route to the goal, to the objective. And then our job is to give them a little bit of sanity check, a little bit of encouragement, and resources to get them to that point. Fundamentally, that's what counseling is all about. Creating opportunities for betterment for the people that you're advising and trying to help become better persons and better versions of themselves over time.